about what we're dealing with in the movie. We open up to find Evan in the car, and his friends thank him for giving them a ride to a cruise ship. They wish that he could come with them, but he assures them that he'll come out with them next year. Once he leaves, Evan calls his brother Peyton, and he reminds him over voicemail that he's on his way today since the dorms at school are closed for break. Eventually, Evan makes it to a trailer in the middle of the desert, and he grabs his bag. Evan knocks on the door and calls out for Peyton, but he just walks inside after he doesn't get an answer. He opens the curtain to the bedroom to find Peyton meditating with his headphones on. Evan pulls him back to reality, and Peyton tries to come up with all sorts of things that they can do together. Peyton mentions a sound bath. I'm really curious as to what this experience is. It sounds like the perfect way to relax, and his description of it really makes me want to go. Evan chooses to go on a hike with him, and they make their way through the desert. Peyton thanks him for choosing to come back to visit him, and he tries to find out if he's seeing anyone. Evan tells him that he's simply playing the field, but Peyton reminds him that playing the field means you should be scoring every now and then. Genius brotherly advice right there. Peyton races off to try and get Evan to have some fun, but Evan takes his time. Eventually, he makes it to the rocks that Peyton's waiting at, and he finds a group of people waiting there for them. While Peyton tries to take a selfie with Evan, Zoe takes notice of Evan and her friend Camille invites them over. Camille offers a little bit to smoke, and Evan graciously accepts. Evan sits with the group and he meets everyone in the group. Camille gets up and leaves Evan with Zoe for a moment, and he asks her about her pictures. The two of them get really into each other, and Zoe asks about Peyton, who's soaking in the sunshine. Evan assures her that he's just high on life, and the two of them hit a joint. Zoe makes a good point though. She mentions that Peyton looks like the guy that she buys drugs from, and Evan assures her that he really hates them. Peyton is one of a kind. When the group decides to head out for the night, Camille invites Evan and Peyton to the house they're renting to enjoy a barbecue. But Evan decides that he's going to stick with Peyton since this is the only time that he gets to see him. After the brothers walk a little ways from the group, Peyton gives in and tells Evan to go hang out with Zoe and her friends before they're gone. And he assures Evan that they still have plenty of time the rest of the weekend to spend together. After a nice walk, the group makes it back to the house that they're renting, and everyone gets ready for some tequila shots. Eventually, the group sits around a campfire to tell scary stories, and he pulls up a story about his G. The tale seems to warn them about a shapeshifter, but no one's really scared. After that story, the rest of the group heads inside to do shots, and Evan goes in to join Zoe in the hot tub. Once they're alone, Evan asks for the group dynamics with the friends, and she points out that everyone there is dating someone, except for her. So Zoe's the ninth wheel in the group. Kinda makes you wonder why she agreed to come along since Evan was a complete surprise. While they're in the bathtub, Zoe sneaks up and kisses Evan out of the blue, but they're disturbed by a sound in the desert. That would be a no for me. They're in the middle of nowhere. They can continue kissing indoors. Evan finally tells her that he's ready to get out and they head inside. They tell the group that they thought they saw someone, and Max thinks that it's just Peyton creeping on them. Camille tells them to keep drinking to forget about it, but Evan keeps peeking out the window into the desert. Zoe pulls Evan to her room, and the two of them stay there the rest of the night. In the morning, Evan wakes up in her bed, and he goes to look at his phone. He's got 5 missed calls from unknown numbers and a crazy hangover. He heads outside to get his shoes that he left by the hot tub, but he suddenly notices sets of footprints that lead away from the house. He follows them to a rundown building behind the house, and he finds a symbol carved and burned into the wall. If you get Blair Witch vibes from something like that, it's probably best to get out of there ASAP. Zoe pops up beside him, but no one's going to address the being that we can clearly see behind Evan. Is the His-G a ghost too? The two of them head back towards the house, and Zoe asks if Evan is going back to Peyton now. Evan tells her that he can't just ditch them, and she's happy that he's deciding to stick around. Back inside, breakfast is being served and joints are being rolled. Max and Vanessa remind everyone that they're heading out in 10 minutes, and everyone goes to get ready. While Zoe tries to get ready, Camille begs her for some details on Evan, and she notices Brian is making even more food. She heads out to join the others by the car, and Evan runs up beside her. They notice someone's missing, and Camille mentions Brian is making more food. Then Brian pops out of the truck and says he's been here the whole time. Evan says that it's the other blonde girl, but Camille is the only blonde in the group. Oh boy, the His-G is already among them. So who's acting sus? Once they reach their destination, the group ends up splitting into groups, and they suddenly hear a shotgun nearby. Everyone seems to blow it off as nearby rednecks, and they keep calmly hiking. Eventually, Nico tries to ask Evan about his brother, and Evan points out that he tries to stay away from here as much as possible. No one notices Zoe standing on the edge at first, but when she jumps off the edge, everyone notices. As everyone rushes down to help her, Zoe looks up to see Tori standing on the edge looking down to her. When everyone gets to her, Tori disappears from the edge, and Zoe finds that Tori is already down here with her. When they get her to the car, Camille tells her that her foot isn't broken, but she definitely has to stay off of her foot. The group heads back to the house, and everyone sits around the table, drinking in silence. So is the Hisji a shapeshifter that controls people's minds as well? The Hisji's really starting to seem like the most terrifying creature I've ever heard of. After Camille wraps Zoe's foot up, she carries her back out to the group, and she goes to get some beer. While she's in the kitchen, she notices Nico sitting at the bar eating, but when she gets back to the group, she notices that Nico is already sitting out there. She looks back to the kitchen to see if she really saw him there, but now there's no one there. When they all sit in the living room, Evan says that they definitely think something's weird going on since they thought someone was watching them in the hot tub the night before. Max still thinks it was Peyton watching them, but he gets up to lock the door so Evan stops complaining about someone watching them. When he goes to lock the front door, Peyton pops up and mentions that he was worried sick about Evan since he decided to take another whole day up here. When Max asks Peyton how he found the house, Peyton reveals that he has a GPS tracking app that tracks Evan's phone since he's had to keep an eye on him their whole life. Okay, well, I can understand watching out for his younger brother. He didn't have to tell him that the app is called Teen Tracker. For a second, I forgot that Evan is actually in college and thought he was a freshman in high school at his first sleepover. Max tries to tell Peyton to take Evan away, but Camille tells Evan to ignore him and do whatever he wants to do. In the end, Evan tells Peyton that he should just leave, because he's choosing to stay to spend more time with Zoe. Peyton seems pretty hurt that Evan doesn't want to spend time with him, but he tells him to call him if he needs anything before leaving. Vanessa breaks up the tension by getting everyone ready to take some shots, but Evan still has an uncomfortable feeling. The group plays a game of Never Have I Ever, but when they get to Sam, the real Sam shows up in the kitchen instead. Just then, the lights cut out, and Nico and Tori really start wondering how Sam managed to be in two places at one time. Finally, more people agree that something's definitely wrong here. But of course, Max has to act all big, bad, and tough to contradict Evan. Can Max just go already? I'm ready for a character to go missing. Max, Evan, and Sam grab a flashlight and a knife, and they go throughout the house to see if whoever they saw is still in the house. After a thorough search, they go back to the group to report that no one else is in the house. In the morning, the electricity kicks back on in the living room, and we see that quite a few people ended up sleeping there. When Evan comes out of Zoe's room, he gets himself a glass of water, and he goes to sit in the living room for a moment. He pulls out his phone to look at a pic that Peyton posted from earlier, and he notices a pattern of 5 bottle caps on the ground. Nico and Brian come in to join him, and they reveal that Max is being how he is because he was with Zoe before she dumped him. Suddenly, Evan notices even more patterns of 5, and he thinks it has something to do with the story of the Hisji. Evan then decides to grab someone's laptop to look up the story again. Why didn't he just use his phone again? That's how he read about the story in the first place. Hopefully it's not Max's laptop. When he looks up the story, he finds a bunch of reports that are linked to crime scenes where other families dealt with the Hisji before killing themselves, and he notices the same symbol that he found in the building out back. Evan goes outside to pace around a bit to calm down, and he starts to run off until Zoe stops him outside. Evan tells her that he should be getting back to Peyton, but he has a change of heart when she kisses him. She asks him not to leave her, and she tells him to get ready to go to the mines with everyone. She tells him that she'll ride with Max since he's already mad, and he can ride with Nico. How about no? Don't go riding with the jealous ex just because he's a little upset. After Max gets ready, he heads to the mines with Nico, Camille, Vanessa, and Max. But when he goes to help Zoe out of the truck, he finds that she's not there. Everyone tells him that she couldn't even get out of bed, and that's why the others stayed behind. Evan tries to tell them that he talked to her outside this morning, but when he finds out that there are 5 people left at the house, he tries to convince them all that they need to go back to the house ASAP. Evan grabs Nico's keys and he and Camille race back to the house. On the way, Evan explains how he thinks he summoned the Hisji that night with his story, and Camille admits that she's noticed that it seemed like someone else has been with them all weekend. When they get back, there's a red circle around the whole house, and they rush inside to find the entire place has been set up for a ritual. Evan and Camille make their way through the house looking for anyone, but at first, all they can find are places where people might have killed themselves. Eventually, Camille spots Zoe outside, and she rushes over to ask what happened. Meanwhile, Evan spots Zoe's cameras, and he knows that she's already ended things. When he rushes outside to find Camille talking to Zoe, he warns her to get away from her because it's not actually her. Just then, Max, Vanessa, and Nico show up and they pass into the circle. Vanessa takes care of herself right there, and they all carry her inside as Zoe reveals herself to actually be the Hisji. They barricade the door and make sure that every entrance is locked and blocked. Then, the Hisji start playing mind games with them as it pretends to be Haley to try and get Nico to open the door. Wait, if it needs victims in sets of 5, why is it going for them since it already got 5? Is today a double play for it? Suddenly, the Hisji starts replaying conversations that it secretly's been a part of that they didn't even realize, and it shuts off the electricity in the living room. When Evan looks out the window, he sees the Hisji for what it really is, and he sees it hold up 4 fingers. Suddenly, it lowers 3 of them, and everyone except for Evan starts walking into the kitchen to end things. Wow, this is definitely the world's worst vacation weekend. Then Evan tries to run away from the house, but he can't seem to pass the blood circle without looping back to the house. Well, I'd say that he's properly screwed. Evan heads back to the rundown building in the back, and he comes up with a solution. He calls Peyton for help, but Peyton doesn't answer. Evan leaves him a message asking for him to come back to the house to help him, but the rattling and hissing from the hiss-G is getting louder and closer. When he looks up, he sees Zoe as she walks over to him, and she tells him that they can all be together now. Zoe goes to hand Evan his lighter, and she smiles while he takes it. The next day, Peyton drives out of the house and he finds no one there. He looks around the property for a moment, and he tries calling out for anyone to answer. He walks in through the back door and he finds the entire house has been put back together. At least it's a clean entity. It could have left a horrifying crime scene, but it put the house back together even better than when the kids first got there. It's kind of awesome. Can it come clean my house? When Peyton gets to the kitchen, he finds Evan's lighter sitting on the table, and he gets the voicemail from Evan. Suddenly, Evan appears behind him, and he says that everyone else has just left. Evan tells him that he's ready to get out of here, and he apologizes for being such a bad brother to him. The two of them hug, and Peyton tries to tell him to not worry about it. They head out, and during the drive, Peyton tells him that he'll take him to meet his friends for his last day in town. As they keep driving, Evan keeps tapping the car door in sequences of 5, and he smiles into the mirror. Then, the credits roll. This is a good one. The ending of this one was about as open as the ending for Inception was, and I'm still not entirely sure if that's Evan or the his-G going out into the world. The tension throughout the movie, though, phenomenal. Give it a shot. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.